And some say that it is starting to feel like a never-ending episode of Who Wants to Be a Billionaire. Former treasurer and vice president of the World Bank, Aruma Ote, has lamented Nigerians' rising debt burden, likening it to a man with a full family who spent all his income on paying debts without consideration for feeding, healthcare, and education of his children. Noting that Nigerian leaders does not have enough to ameliorate the hardship in the country. Adekunle Yusuf, I don't know, as at the last time we checked, somebody was, I'll check now, but administration is going to leave 7 trillion.
No, that is, if they add the CBN, you know, they've been taking loans from the CBN to pay salaries and all that. They call it ways and means. We've talked about it here a number of times. And the World Bank has been saying, stop taking these loans from the CBN. If they add the loans, the overdraft that they've been taking from the CBN, at the end of this year, it will come to 77 trillion naira. So the current figure of 44 trillion does not include what they borrowed from the CBN.
77 trillion.
At the end of this year.
In my whole life, I can't, because yes, they will tell you that we've been building infrastructure. Yes, they will signal Lagos Ibadan Express Road. They will tell you Abuja Kano Express Road, second Niger Bridge. Train stations and everything. But now, what we now pay for debt management is more than the income that is coming in, and that is the mathematics that I found it difficult to comprehend. When what you used to settle your debt is more than your income. That's crisis.
Well, by the time historians, finally do their work, I know for sure, this president, this administration, failed woefully on 2 counts: security and economic management. How do you justify these humongous borrowings? You can't prove to me you built, as Nigeria become a Dorado under this administration. Of course, we need infrastructure. Everybody knows that.
But the deficit is very high.
But there is no administration. That's why they say government is a continuum. There's no administration that can do it, finish, the job. So, if every administration has been doing this, I don't know whether we'll still have a country. I don't know whether we'll still have a country. And I believe even the incoming administration should also be worried.
What they are going to inherit, the liability.
When Godwin Obaseki, blew the whistle that time, that they are borrowing money from the CBN.
That they were even printing money.
Okay. It's the same thing. Whether you are borrowing, you are printing. When you want to
printing money.
Okay, when you go to CBN, it has to print. That's the language. Whatever. Do you know that it was roundly criticized, but later it was found to be true, and that is jackboot economics. Why would you do that? It does not make any economic sense. Yeah, you want to do that to build railway, you want to take money. I think, is it China that turned down our loan request? I think
loan request.
2 loan requests.
Which is unusual.
No, they calculate that we can't pay.
China, who has become turned down 2 loan requests from Nigeria. And ordinarily, why would an outgoing government still embarking on the borrowing binge? The ones you have borrowed over the last 8 years, have you, exhausted everything? And this National Assembly, we also be fingered in all of this, because why is it always in a hurry to approve the borrowing for the President Muhammadu Buhari administration?
The federal government has not done anything illegal.
All over.
It has been approved. It's always
Every
approved
money
by the
borrowed
National
by
Assembly.
this administration was approved by the Senate. I mean the National Assembly.
Actually, that's where the problem is now. We have to look for a mechanism that can stop any government at all, not the Buhari government, even the government that will be coming.
Maybe a law.
There should be a cap. There should be, I don't know,
Even
maybe
if they don't put a cap, creditors will stop. We have started saying that.
Just like China.
They will stop.
and
Because creditors
that means
want
our
to-
credibility has gone down the drain.
Creditors want to see whether you have the capacity to pay. It's just like somebody coming to me to say, okay, Jide, out of your meager resources, borrow me so. There are people who ask you to borrow them money that you'll be excited to even do it. Because that person, in paying back, he could even give you extra money. I've been in that situation before that, you bail me out the other day, take. When you now counted, you saw that it's even higher than what you give. So,
yes.
But in this case, you will no longer be credit worthy before your creditors if you do not do anything about your unusual appetite for borrowing money. The truth, as I always say, always wicked. Whether you are using it for infrastructure or not, you have to slow down at a point. Even this CBN Senate president, who made it a habit to always grant the president's request. Some months back, he was complaining that we were taking too much loans and that it was not sustainable. If you Google it, you will see it. Because that day,
And
I was like, no, it was just, the complaint was not as he was trying to give a loan. He was evaluating what they had done. And I'm telling you that if you ask him now, and the president is not listening, he will most likely tell you that, we shouldn't have given approval for all of those loans. Because a time comes when a man has to do some soul searching. He has to ask himself questions. What have we gained by this constant approval of these loans? Because we are further hurting the economy. Nigeria in the first quarter, I think, of last year, we spent more than 100% of our, I think 186% of our revenue to service debt. During that period, even South Africa, that their debt is higher. They spent just 20% of their own receipt, which is their revenue. 20% of their receipt was what they used to service them. How can you use 186%
Of your revenue.
I'm not talking about the whole year. I think just it was just a quarter. Things can normalize themselves in the course of the year. But even if it's for a quarter, debt servicing should never outstrip revenue. Many times I've talked here about the need for us to always look at debt to revenue ratio. People always say debt to GDP ratio. In our own case, it's not working. If we keep telling ourselves that, our debt to GDP ratio is high, then we will borrow ourselves into extinction. We will not, because a country like Japan, a country like US could say, yes, our debt to GDP ratio is fine. But Nigeria, the problem for us is that the revenue is not there. And that's what makes it unsustainable. Look at, between 2015 and 2021, we spent 14.86 trillion to service debt. In the 9 months of 2022, we spent 3.4 trillion to service debt. Now, between 2015 and 2021, the revenue that we generated was 25.43 trillion. And we've taken 14.86 trillion out of it to service debt. If a good chunk of what you generate goes to debt servicing, where are you going to find money for infrastructure? Where are you going to find money for health? Where are you going to find money for education? Where are you going to find money for climate action? Like what we experienced last year when all of those states were flooded. What kind of climate action can we come up with when the funds, we've used the funds that are available to us to pay debt. The rest of the funds we use to pay for subsidy. So where are we going to get the money for social services, things that move the economy, things that drive the economy, things that make the people happy? So taking loans, no matter what you want to do with it, whether it is infrastructure or you want to use to pay ASU debt, this and that, there has to be moderation. And that's the point that this woman is making. Remember, Okonjo Iweala herself, and even Adesina, early last year,
African Development Bank,
they were warning that, look, we needed to do something about this, but there are some people who come and say, no, that they should not talk. At least we can see what they are using the money for. Oh, now China, the whole country, everyone, it will get to a point that nobody will give you again. So make up your mind up that you want to look inwards. The incoming administration has to look inwards. We have to do something about revenue so that we can find money. If we are able to make more money, earn more revenue, you don't need to be borrowing like an accumulator like this. You don't need to do that.
So it's okay.
For example, just to when they increased VAT, do you know it was an economically stupid decision? When you increased VAT, you are trying to stifle, consumption, production, because the rate is not what matters. It is the volume that you collect that matters. What have you benefited from that? There are avenues to make money, but we would not use. Nigeria loves to borrow money, to print money, to go to CBN to collect more money. At the end of the day, what have we become? The poverty capital of the whole world. Has our economy been this bad?
No, it's
it has never been this bad. There has never been at any time in our history that level of corruption, level of poverty, level of hunger, level of unhappiness,
unemployment, inflation,
everything.
Officially, 130 million people poor.
And multidimensionally poor. You know what that means? So it is because of these kind of decisions that spirals into every other facet of our national life. And the ordinary folks, the masses, are the ones that bear the brunt most. This government will go, another one will come. Then it will start now mopping up all the debris all over the place. I'm really, really sad about it. Of course, they will deliver second Niger Bridge, then Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Abuja, Kano. I beg, go to a small country like Republic of Benin here. Roads like Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, go and check. That are just one way. They will dualize it. You will see. Here is just the roads. We had no traffic light, nothing. And the quality of the public construction you see in Benin Republic, I said, even Julius Berger, our own, we agree with envy. I said, what? And there is no construction that must, past 24 months. They peg it. Even where there is no road, they are busy working day and night. Not this intermittent.
You know what our people, what the government has failed to do for clearly selfish reasons is to get the private sector a lot more involved in delivering infrastructure, quality and game-changing infrastructure. In Angola, they built a new refinery through build, operate, and transfer. Because the funds are not there. But if we get the private sector involved, they can build for you, and they'll use it after some time, and then transfer to you. But to think that you can raise the money at all, you must raise the money, award contracts, this and that, because there is usually the avenue to make money. It is what is killing us. If we bring the private sector into this whole thing, not just in Nigeria, bring foreigners, get them, bring foreign companies, get them more involved. Like you want to build power plants, you say, okay, General Electric, come and build power plant for us. Let's do build, operate, and transfer. There's no way. You have lost nothing. You have lost nothing. At the end of the day, the transfer will be done after a few years. Once they've made their money, it becomes your own. This is what globally. This is what countries are doing, because government will not be able to find all the funds.
Efficient. That's what Wale Babalaki
They will run it efficiently.
MM2.
The government will never be able to find all the money that it needs. We have to realize that. If we try to do that with refinery, by now, maybe we'll have 2 new refineries.
Even more than,
I will know that after a while, but to not even attempt it at all, and you can see Angola, not far away from us, Angola has done it. We are not making enough money from crude oil for all kinds of reasons. 1.8 million is your quota. You are struggling to do 1.2. OPEC gave you a quota of 1.8 million. You are struggling to do 1.2. Where are you going to? And part of this money, NNPC is allowed to use it to pay subsidy. Where are you going to find the funds to fix infrastructure, to do the things for which you are now taking loans all over the place? I'm happy that, yes, we have some infrastructure that we can point to, but this infrastructure have come at a huge price. Because whether Nigerians like it or not, you must pay this debt too.
What is the $1 billion
you will pay.
We invested into these refineries? Have they finished the turnaround? Recently,
nobody is talking about that.
We were told that $1 billion for the 3 refineries for 18 months. By now, it should be up to that 18 months.
Against that, the government had its way, and they borrowed that money to do the turnaround. And at the end of the day, you see, he was talking about bringing in, the private investors, not only even in infrastructure. I'm talking about petroleum sector. You can do it for health. For example, you want to have specialist hospitals, cancer, this and this. You want to have 10. This is you bring in people. They will do it. You won't budget a dime.
Yes.
Build, transfer, build, operate, and transfer. Nigerians will not bother whether these facilities were brought in by Ghanaians or people from Sao Tome or whatever, as long as they have access to it. And these things are working. You can do it in the power sector, you can do it in the health sector, you can do it in education.
Once it's infrastructure, they can.
You can do it in education.
For road, you told it.
Yes.
If
you tell me that I can go from here to maybe Osun or Ikiti, on a new brand road that will be told
3.5 hours to get to
Kubo, from here or 2 hours Ikiti. I am in Osun State, I will be glad to pay.
Honestly.
Instead of passing through, you understand what I mean? So these are ways we can, accelerate our development pace. But we don't seem to like it. In 8 years, how many refineries? let me tell you, nobody can remove fuel subsidy without, first of all, undo local refining of crude oil. If you don't, you will worsen the already bad situation. But in 8 years, how many refineries have come up?
It's not looking really good for the first 6 months of the new administration, because there are decisions that we expect them to take.
Very painful decisions.
Very painful decisions. This fuel subsidy is topmost, and administration that is going to inherit 77 trillion. I don't know.
You know, when there are some decisions that you have to take and brush aside the emotional.
Yeah, it will be painful.
Yes, brush aside your emotions and just go ahead, take those decisions.
If we go,
Mr. President,
that's what you are saying now.
Mr.
If we
President,
finally meet ourselves on maybe 700 naira per liter.
I don't know whether you can get to that. I don't know.
Or 500.
You see what? Look, even beyond, let's not even. It's not about fuel subsidy alone. When I'm talking about painful decisions that have to be taken, look at our bureaucracy. Is that bureaucracy?
It's not.
They need to keep that bureaucracy going. Is the reason they are going to borrow money from CBN and all that, because they are using this money to pay salary. When it was first suggested, they said no. Some people said it was a lie, but it's happening. All of those, they call it ways and means, but it's actually you are borrowing from CBN, 23 trillion now. So you have to look at keeping the bureaucracy nimble. Is it everyone in the federal and state civil services that we require? Do we need to have 9 drivers in one office with about 5 of them simply lounging, having nothing to do? So, you know, it was suggested that the government should look at the federal civil service and purge it. Oronsaye wanted a streamlining of the ministries, agencies, and parastatals. But I'm even talking about suggestions that other people made, that look at that civil service, federal civil service, is too large. It's not sustainable. You need to trim it. Actually, Bola Ahmed Tinubu did it here in Lagos. It was a very unpopular decision. There were demonstrations. Remember what happened in that era? But he insisted that he had to do it. We can't. The bureaucracy that we have is not sustainable. We are deceiving ourselves. A time will come when we will tell ourselves that, look, enough. We can actually run the government in a much leaner manner. Look at even the National Assembly. Are we saying that we can't take steps to cut costs? What steps have been taken by this outgoing administration to cut costs across board?
No.
Nothing.
No, they increased.
Even despite the fact that they were finding it difficult to pay salaries and all that without resorting to the CBN, they still didn't do anything about cutting costs. Remember what the governor of Kaduna said? He said when they suggested that the what's it called should go, the subsidy should go, that President Buhari was the only person who insisted that he would not remove it. He was the only person. Everybody agreed that this thing is not sustainable. Why should we be spending that much just to paying subsidy? And he said no, that he will not remove it, that it will cause the poor people to suffer. But it has made billions. It has made some people billionaires from just outright stealing and falsifying the figures, falsifying the amount PMS we consume on a daily basis. And they are the ones removing the money by themselves. It's not the National Assembly appropriating money to them for subsidy. On their own, they are paying, which is even strange.
Look at VAT that I mentioned the other time. There are many studies. VAT is not a federal government affair. It is state by state affair. You just work out the modalities. If possible, reduce it. It is the volume that you collect that matters. The sharing, do you know, through VAT alone, Nigeria can revamp its economy. You are talking about oil subsidy, oil, petroleum, all those things. Without much revenue from oil, through VAT, Nigeria can, recalibrate its economy. But not through a federal government agency sitting over it. State by state, do you know Nigeria can generate more than 40 times of what it is generating through VAT? It is not the rate that matters, it is the volume you are able to collect.
But even the economy is gasping now.
And there are expert findings to this point. You get my point? So these things are there.
All right. And finally, setting the bar